Well, we had a research and development camp last week. Brendan Shanahan was in charge. He had two good coaches, Ken Hitchcock, Dave King from the Phoenix Coyotes, working at that camp. Top young players from around North America. What's the one thing you took out of the research and development camp? You say, this is a positive thing going forward for the National Hockey League and hockey in general.
Well, first of all, I think Brendan, hockey operations, and the NHL staff involved did a terrific job. The young players who were there and the coaches did a great job, and I thank them all for that. Coming off, as we discussed early on, perhaps what may have been one of our strongest, if not our strongest seasons ever, coming off an era where the game being played is perhaps as good as it's ever been, we thought this would be an opportune time to actually look at the game and experiment with things that might improve the game and experiment with things that are completely absurd, but satisfying ourselves that they were absurd. And to do that and look at the game at a time when you're not addressing a particular problem or a crisis is really the best time to be able to do it. That's why companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on research and development. You want to stay ahead of the curve and see what's next. Looking at how we do face-offs, looking at the hybrid icing, looking at 3-on-3 overtime to potentially reduce the number of shootouts, looking at making the ice a little bigger by changing the width of the blue lines. These are all things that were worth looking at, and as we normally do, we will take our findings and our thoughts and discuss them with the general managers at their 3-day meeting in February or March, and we'll see what, if anything, we want to do. The good news is we're not under any pressure right now to make any rule changes.
Earlier, you wouldn't take us into a Board of Governors meeting. Now take us into a General Managers meeting. What didn't you like at the R&D?
I didn't think the 2-on-2 overtime was particularly useful or effective. I think that's more alien to our game. You never see that in a shootout because penalty shots are part of the game.
Headshots has become a very real issue in hockey. You saw obviously the Matt Cook and Mark Savard situation.
Notice those.
What's your take on headshots, first of all?
Well, we reached a point in the game, and the Savard hit, as emblematic of that as anything else, is simply that based on how fast and how physical the game has become, the type of hitting in the game has evolved, and typically, at least historically, shoulder hits were considered legal, and it became abundantly clear to us that a lateral or blindside hit where the primary point of contact or the focus of the hit was the head, even if delivered by a shoulder, was devastating, and we needed, based on how the game evolved, to get it out of the game. And that was something I think the general managers as a group, analyzing all of the data that we were able to develop, looking as we did at all the research that was done, particularly having professionals look at video of probably 200 concussions to determine as best we can how they happen, consistent with what we've been doing since 1997 on concussions when we started a working group to try and reduce them. In terms of our efforts with baseline testing, we were the first sports league to do that in all the sports, education of the players, creation of videos, DVDs. We take concussions, their treatment, their diagnosis, the return to play decision very seriously, and this was just another step in that process. We think, based on the research, and I don't want to oversell this, the rule change made by the general managers could reduce concussions by up to 50%. If that's the case, it will have been a dramatic step forward. Are we ever completely going to get concussions out of the game? I think that's difficult as long as we encourage physical contact.